brought something that most people like to bring gold medals, and I did bring one because I know some of you guys might want to see one. But I wanted to touch on one that actually maybe the most important race, one of the most important races in my life. And the reason I say that is because I started this when I was very young, and this is what I consider to be the start of my career. This started a career that, like I said, lasted me a decade on the international level. And how many of you guys are 13 years old? You guys raise your hands? Right on. So when I was 13 years old, I remember I walked into practice one day, and I had just aged up to the next group on my team. From the gold group, or whatever it was, from 10 to 12, to the national team group, where the big boys and big girls swim. You know, I was swimming with not just 17, 18-year-olds, but now I was swimming with collegiate, post-collegiate kids. People who were a lot bigger than me, a lot stronger, a lot older. Some were losing their hair. A lot had armpit hair. I didn't have any yet. I was tall. I was probably 6 foot. I was probably almost 6 feet when I was 13. Had size 13 feet. Probably weighed about 100 pounds. I had nothing on me. I was wiry. But I went into that group already fairly confident and understanding that I would be very humble. About 2 months into being in that group, which Jason Lezak swam in, Amanda Beer, among many others. Mike Cavett, Miller Chad Beach, the guy who touched second to Michael Phelps. There were a lot of people that we had to look up to on our team. And so moving up to this level, it raised full expectations for me. 2 months into that team, 2 months into being in that group, my coach pulls me aside and he goes, "Aaron, in 4 years, 13 years old, I was in 1996. I had just been to the 1996 Olympics and actually watched Amanda Beard swim, my teammate. It was very cool. And so that made a bit of an impression on me. But when I went back, I had it in my head, I said, one day, I want to be able to go there. When I went back, when I was 13 years old, my coach told me, 2 months into being in his group, he pulls me out and he goes, "Aaron, if you do what I say, and you really put your head down over the next 4 years, I think you have a really good shot at making the Olympic team." And that would make me, during trials, 16 years old, and during the Olympics, 17. I would age up in between the two. So I looked at him, and I was thinking, well, no time's like the present. I think that sounds absolutely fantastic. Me coming from a group, we'd already worked hard. But I remember the next day I went to practice, thinking I was on cloud nine, my coach wants me to do something really special. That, to this day, was the hardest practice of my entire life. He kept me after practice and broke me down. And he basically made me cry. Not because he yelled at me or did anything, to hurt my pride. In fact, quite the opposite. He kept me after for a set that was a 300s. We were trying to hold best average. And he kept me after for a set where everyone else had gotten out. Not everyone was making what their time was supposed to be. But he looks at me and he goes, "Why don't you do another?" So I look at him, and not the first time I've been in detention, so to speak. So I said, "Fine, I'll do one more." And I was always I was a really good worker in practice. It wasn't for lack of trying. The fact that I wasn't making what I was supposed to go. Try to do another. I go that one more. Touch the wall, didn't go any faster. He goes, "That wasn't good enough. You didn't go the time." He makes me do another. And he made me do about 7 more 300s backstroke. To the point where I was just like, "What do you want from me? Can't do this anymore." And I remember he looked at me, and I broke down. And just because of just sheer fatigue, I was just like, "Send me home, I'm hungry, I probably had a test the next day," and I was like, I gotta get some sleep. So he sits down, and I remember him looking down at me, and he goes, "This is what you're going to have to do over the next 4 years if you really want to make this a reality. This is what guys that you look up to had to do. Guys that I looked up to, like Jeff Rouse, not yet, but Lenny Kreiselberg, soon to be. Jeff Rouse, 96, that just won a gold medal, Brad Bridgewater. How many of you guys know these names? I implore each and every one of you, for the sake of, I know a lot of you cherish this sport, to become historians of the sport, to know where the sport has come from, because by no means has anything that we've done, is anything that we've done new. People have tread these waters. Times get faster, but as far as accomplishments and accolades of these people that live in our past, people who set us up, that was kind of what my platform was. And so I took over the next 4 years, I took it under my wing to try to make it to the Olympics. And for a 16-year-old kid who's pretty ignorant, and he's good for his age, but to actually tell him, he can make the Olympic team, it was something very, it was impactful. And so in 2000, I get to the meet, and the entire time I was told, walk up to Olympic trials and pretend like it's just any other meet. But for a 16-year-old kid walking to the Olympic trials, I don't swim until day 7, my 200 backstroke, and I see people freaking out like they've never been to a swimming before in their entire lives. And that was my wake up into what the higher level of swimming would be. One thing I'm pretty sure I maintained fairly well was perspective, though. And so from somebody who's been there at a very young age, not only can you guys get to that level, I'm a testament to that, but you guys actually, there's something very powerful about youth that only you guys have that someone like me now no longer has. I'm almost 28 years old. I no longer swim competitively, but I can speak from both sides of the aisle now, and there's nothing quite like having youth on your side, because when you get up to race somebody who's done what I've already done, see, I'm not going to go drop 5 seconds anymore in the 200 backstroke. You guys are the unpredictable ones. You guys are the ones that we look to and we go, what are they going to do? I can predict what my teammates are going to do, more or less, as well as, people that I've swum for the national level for a long time. But you guys actually have something very unique with you, and it's something more poignant and powerful than I think anything a veteran may have. Now that being said, I have to convince myself that experience will overcome you. So, it's one of those things where you guys actually have the ability to push beyond those boundaries that we simply can't physically do anymore. But I want to share this with you because at the time, when I went to the Olympic Games, one thing always stood out what my coach said, and Lenny Krazelberg, who went on to win 3 Olympic gold medals at this Olympics, was favored to win all these races. And everybody was giving him the gold medals in all these races, even the people he was swimming against. And that always struck me as something unfortunate as well. And my coach had said something to me that stuck with me, among many things, like, Aaron, you can make the Olympics in 4 years, and Aaron, you're good enough, and that kind of thing. But he goes, don't ever race for second place. Not even, doesn't matter who you're racing. Doesn't matter how big they are. I can tell you stories about me. I'm almost 6'3", but by no means am I the tallest guy that swims in the Olympics or the international level in backstroke. I'm actually one of the small guys. I race guys who are 6'8". All right, I mean big, powerful guys. Me in the weight room, I'm not that intimidating. Not at all. I'm not incredibly strong. All right, but there are other ways to overcome these obstacles. And one of those ways was, I understood from a very young age, you don't give anybody the go-ahead in any race, because you never know what they might end up doing. And that kind of also coincides with, what I was saying earlier. If you don't give anyone the race, you probably will end up having that one time when you do swim well, when you, who are so young, can actually have that good race, and the person who's a little bit older and more of a veteran just kind of stays where they are. And before you know it, you are the one that is being chased, no longer the one chasing. And in this race, at this time in my career, I was the one chasing. I had a defined goal. And Lenny was my goal. I went to the Olympics trying to beat him. I ended up touching the wall, and I got second place at the Olympic Games. I can tell you just about every single yard of this race. Partly because when I walk out, there's 17,000 people in the stands. I know there's about 2 billion people watching on television. Never been in a swimming like this before in my life. And I remember getting to the blocks and thinking, well, you know what, the hard part was behind me. I made the Olympic team. Now I just had to do this. And I ended up doing something for myself at the time, which was, for me, my gold medal. And I got to go home with something that set me up for the rest of my career. This medal, for me in this race, might be the most impactful one that I've had. Simply because I sometimes wonder if I would have gotten the gold medal in my first Olympics, would I have been as hungry in the next one? And would I have followed it up in 2008 and been as hungry in that one? So I share this with you. A lot of times we bring gold medals and share our stories about gold medals, but it's not always the gold medals actually that are most important ones. And it's not at all, and I can speak on behalf of just about every single person on my team. It's not even really the color of the medal that matters over time. It's basically about how comfortable you are with how you've done. You can't control what anybody else in your race is doing. Unfortunately, that day, Lenny was on. Lenny crushed it. He just did incredibly well. There was nothing I was going to do. Me being 6'1" and weighing 100, $109, something like that, I was weak, wasn't strong enough yet. I had to grow into myself to be able to do what it was that my goals were eventually. But at that time, I did what I could. And so this kind of gave me perspective. Not only did it make me realize I've achieved something that I had set out to do, but it made me realize I belonged there. And it made me realize that I could stick it out. And I was young. So this one, if you guys want to see this one, this might be one